Latrell Mitchell is in. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Maguire has selected his Game 2 team for the New South Wales Blues. And as a fan of this state, a fan of this team, ladies and gentlemen, we are so headed to a decider, we may as well not even play this bloody game. Now, Queensland will go in as favourites, and rightfully so. But looking at this team, there are only two changes from the one that I named for myself just a few days before the Game 2 team was announced. So when it comes to the players that were available, obviously no Cleary, obviously no Turbo. This is probably the closest I've ever seen to my predicted team actually being the one selected, which of course gets me very, very excited. As always, there are some big concerns, but when it comes to the overall makeup of this team, I think it's extremely better than it was in Game 1. Granted, there were a bunch of players in this team that weren't available for Game 1 due to injury. I think it's a very well more balanced team. I think it's got some better players in it, but it also still has that gritty defensive mindset that we saw in Game 1. So we're going to break it all down, and of course, let's start with the big one. Ever since he tried to put Reece Walsh 10 feet under, we've been talking about who is going to be the center, and well, thanks to his form over the past month, it was a no-brainer. Latrell Mitchell, the only question was if he'd commit himself to Michael Maguire, commit himself to New South Wales, and him and Madge had a lovely dinner date at the 2014 Premiership reunion, and Michael Maguire must have been loving what Latrell was telling him over a lobster bisque, because he is in. Granted, a Queenslander probably never has to tell the Queensland coach that he's committed to the team, but I think a lot of the people who are saying, well, where is he from Game 1? I don't understand their argument, because I am not forgetting where I stood on Latrell Mitchell just a month ago. I wanted him nowhere near the New South Wales Blues team for Game 1, and I stand by that, and I stand by that now. It was in some horrific form. The South Sydney Rabbitohs were going like a busted ass, but ever since then, they've won 3 on the trot, and that is basically because Latrell Mitchell is playing the best form he has shown at the South Sydney Rabbitohs at least over the past year. He's been absolutely outstanding, and he is doing all the little effort areas, which is great to see. Now, obviously, he becomes the New South Wales biggest attacking threat. In saying that, though, he is still the biggest X factor in this game, because how good he is going to be with the ball in hand, he could be just as big of a liability for Queensland, because obviously, just like I said in the lead up to Game 1, with no Cameron Munster, Reece Walsh becomes the main focal point of the Queensland in the way they attack, and the edge defense of New South Wales is going to be on high alert. And in a weird way, Game 1 was decided because Reece Walsh really got the better of an edge defender in the weirdest sort of way possible. But on the whole, I can't wait to see Latrell Mitchell back in Sky Blue for the first time in 3 years. He's been severely missed. That X-Factor presence wasn't there in Game 1. Obviously, it would have been interesting to see how that game went, but from a New South Wales perspective, this has essentially become a 2-match series. Game 1 absolutely meant nothing, and I do think Billy Slater is smart enough to see that as well. So I can't wait to see Latrell Mitchell back in Sky Blue. That left edge for New South Wales looks so deadly. That's obviously going to be the main focal point, and that right edge for Queensland, it really was pretty defensively shaky in Game 3 last year. Now, I know it's a dead rubber, but still, New South Wales are going to be attacking that edge, and they're going to be doing it with Angus Crichton, who's arguably the best back rower, Latrell Mitchell, who's the biggest X-Factor player, and Brian Tobe, the best winger in the competition. So it'll be interesting to see how that edge can go. It's just a matter of getting them early ball and getting them on the front foot, which of course will come down to the halves. And I'm not as sold on this Luai-Moses combo as most New South Welshmen have been. It was only a year ago, and granted, some things are different, but Luai and Moses went into a Game 2 that was a must-win to keep the series alive, and they got absolutely blown off the park. Now, Jerome Luai is probably playing his best career footy at club level right now. That, again, is in the halfback position, and Mitchell Moses hasn't exactly been setting the world on fire over the past 2 weeks. He did win Game 3 last year, but he's still 0-2, and the one live Origin game he has had, which I guess you cannot rely on too much, but he did fail substantially. Now, so did everyone else, and so did Luai in Game 2 last year. So it's hard to keep that entire thing on Mitchell Moses, and I do think that you need to give players more than one chance in State of Origin, and he actually has won a game before. Now, a lot of people have been saying if Moses was Madge's #1 option, before his injury. Obviously, it's the Cleary injury as well. Then it makes sense to put Moses in, and I agree. However, I do feel shattered for Nico Hines because while a lot of people have been shitting on him for that Game 1 performance, like I said, I've pretty much said since that game, it's hard to really judge him off that one game. Now, if you want to go to Cronulla and talk about him in big games there, then I completely agree. Unfortunately, Nico doesn't have the best track record in games right now, but if he was Madge's number 1 pick, and his Game 1 performance is what's kept him out of the side, then I really question it because while his kicking game wasn't the best, he still managed the game pretty well and only kept us down 20-10 with 12 men for nearly an entire half of football combined in Game 1. Now, if Moses had come out and continued his form from that Sharks game against two teams that, let's be fair, Ingham actually had their best 17s or close to on the field, then I wouldn't be so skeptical, but he went missing last week against the Roosters and he went missing at the end of the Bulldogs game. Now, that, of course, isn't entirely on Moses. It never is entirely on the halfback, but they do play a critical role in at least sealing a win, and Mitchell Moses didn't really exactly do that over the past fortnight. I do think what's got him over the line over Nico is he does have a much better all-around kicking game, and that shouldn't surprise anyone. Mitchell Moses is a career halfback, and Nico Hines was a backup fullback who's been playing halfback for 3 years. I think Mitchell Moses will probably suit the balance of this team and the way they're looking to play, especially that kicking game is going to be so critical with the makeup of this team, which still has that defensive edge that the Game 1 team did have. But I do worry about the Luai-Moses combination. I wouldn't have been too opposed to giving Jerome Luai the keys to halfback and letting him control the team on his own. He's been killing it for Penrith ever since they made that decision to give the keys to Luai in the absence of Nathan Cleary, and he's playing his best footy since he took Samoa to World Cup final, where he was also the halfback there. Not to mention, while Moses was a key part of that Game 3 win last year, we could have included the man of the match alongside Luai. Now, you want Luai and Cody Walker on the same team, maybe that's leading too much into the attacking focus, and then you don't have as good of a kicking game that Mitchell Moses does have. So there's pros and cons on either side, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't skeptical of the same halves combination who died in the arse in Game 2 last year, as much as I'm backing them both to rectify that this year. So I think that Luai does become the most important player in this team for the fact that he's got that left edge. It's up to him to get the ball to Angus Crichton, to get the ball to Latrell Mitchell. He's the guy there, and then Mitchell Moses, he can just simplify his role, and Mitchell Moses does play more like Nathan Cleary than Nico Hines does, obviously. Dylan Edwards comes straight back in. Unfortunately, I think New South Wales basically had to win to keep Teddy in. Otherwise, it's just easy for Madge to go where he was going to go originally. I also think that Edwards suits Moses probably more than Tedesco does. I know that Moses and Teddy have played together in the past, but I really think this is a case of Luai will do most of his work down the left. Edwards will be doing most of his work down the right, which Tedesco wouldn't do. He would float both sides, and it's up to Mitchell Moses to control the middle of the field and basically swing the ball to both of those players. Play first receiver, which is why I absolutely love Cameron Murray at lock. Obviously, Game 3 last year, he was absolutely phenomenal, and outside of Paddy Carrigan, he's probably the best lock in the game in my opinion. It does suck that Cameron McInnes has to fall out. Like I have said, having Jake and McInnes is probably too much. You chuck Cameron Murray on top of that, you just couldn't play all four. Unfortunately, Cameron McInnes misses out. I would have kept him in there. I know why they're keeping Isaiah Yeo in the team. It's clear that he's acting as that vice captain, as the captain when Jake is off the field. But in my opinion, I wouldn't have picked him. I would have kept McInnes in there over Isaiah Yeo. But I guess it's really hard to drop the captain of the three-time winning premiership side, which I totally understand. I do feel shattered for McInnes like I do with Nico. I'm glad that he's still in the squad. I'm surprised that Nico's on the squad over Luke Keary. I just think maybe that calf injury has been coming back, and maybe you try to get through the Dolphins game, and that's why, well, I'm trying to give him an excuse for why he sent that kick to Wollongong's instead of over the post. Glad to see Connor Watson in the team. It's funny how New South Wales have gone from no utility to literally the utility. I'm surprised Madge didn't go safe and keep Matty Burton in there, but I guess that's what happens when you whinge about being 18th man. Connor Watson, while he probably isn't as good in the halves or at centre as Matty Burton, Connor Watson will at least find a way onto the field if there are no injuries, whether that's at lock, or he can even give Reece Robson a rest. He's the ultimate utility, and he has been in some great form. Yes, I know it's weird that they're picking a bench player to play for New South Wales, but he is the ultimate utility. Poor Hudson Young, I do feel bad for him, but he shouldn't have been in the team in the first place. I think Ola Kawatu is easily the choice out of those two. Everyone else sort of picks themselves. I mean, Brian Toto's the best winger in the comp. Stephen Crichton's probably the best centre in the competition. Zach Lomax has gone to club footy and played even better. You're not dropping the captain, Jake Trbojevic, although I do think he plays a substantially bigger role in this game. Don't be shocked if he plays 50 to 60 minutes. So happy for Spencer Leniu that he keeps his spot, and it's going to be hard for him to stay out of this team. I do think overall this is a much more balanced team and a much better team than the game one side, while also keeping that defensive edge about it. I do think that's going to be the way they play, with Luai facilitating down the left, Edwards on the right, and Mitchy Moses controlling the middle along with Cameron Murray. But I do think that this team is very capable of getting the job done as long as we can go through the front door, which it seems this team is going to do again. Luai can get the ball into Latrell Mitchell and Angus Crichton's hands, or Brian Toto's. Heck, even Moses and Edwards can just give it to Stephen Crichton. There is a lot more strike in this team. There is a lot more presence, and Queensland, I know that you are shitting yourself. But ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts on the New South Wales Game 2 team in that comment section down below. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet already, and I'll see you in the next one.